So over the years, I've had many different iterations of my camera bag, and it's been a while since I've actually sat down and made a video with you guys about everything that's in my camera bag currently. Took a look and it's been almost 3 years since my last camera bag update video, so I thought no better time than now to actually dive in and share with you guys what I've been using on my shoots. I think it's important to note that no shoot is the same, therefore this isn't sort of like a universal camera bag video. I bring along different stuff for different kinds of shoots, different jobs, whether it's for fun or for work. I'm going to be bringing a different kind of kit, usually for each different type of shoot. Kind of the unique challenges to each shoot require different kinds of gear. What I'm going to share with you today is kind of my camera bag when it's fully packed up, and I'm going to be shooting photos and probably some video alongside that as well. This is what I bring typically on any sort of travel or trip. I was pretty tired of having multiple different camera brands in my bag, having different batteries correspond with each camera. It just got kind of cumbersome, and I wanted the ability to have the same battery for all different cameras that I use, be able to get to the end of the night and actually just charge all my batteries at once with the same charger and be ready to go for the next day of shooting. Recently, I sold off all my Canon gear, meaning my R5 and all the different lenses that I had for that camera. And that camera was a workhorse for quite some time before I decided to finally pull the trigger and switch over to Fuji entirely. So that's kind of what I'm shooting on now. You know, shooting with Canon all these years has been amazing. I've shot with Canon pretty much since day one, with the exception of a few cameras here and there. I've always had a Canon camera in my bag, but this gradual switch to Fuji over the last several years has definitely been one that I've wanted to make. And I finally pulled the trigger on the Fuji X-H2S, which is what I'm filming on right now. Now, between the X-H2S and my other cameras that I use, I felt like my kit is pretty complete now, and I wanted to, again, sit down and chat with you guys about all the different stuff that I bring and how it all works. It's been a lot of years refining this kit and really take a simplistic approach to everything that I bring. I try not to bring too much stuff. I don't have a ton of lenses. I really keep things very minimal if I can. And I like to keep my lighting package and my video package as small as possible as well. The entire goal at the end of the day is to not let the camera gear get in the way of me actually taking photos and shooting video. I want that process to be as easy as possible, and bringing along extra equipment that's just going to fill up my bag isn't necessary for me personally. So first things first is the actual bag itself, and this is the Peak Design Travel Pack in the 45-liter version. I recently actually picked up a second one of these bags. My first one finally decided to crap out on me, but I had that bag for almost 8 years, so I feel like the purchase was very well worth it, and the bag is extremely durable. I'm not very easy on my bags. I demand a lot, and I pack a lot of heavy equipment. This is definitely a big backpack, so if you kind of gravitate towards smaller camera bags or smaller shoulder and sling bags, this probably is going to be the backpack for you. It's a pretty large backpack, and I found it to be great for what I need it for, but it's definitely a large one. Inside I have the large camera cube insert, and that is usually fully packed out with different cameras and lenses and pouches and accessories. I've just found this backpack to fit everything that I need, and I know how it works. I keep everything in its right place, and therefore I can bring just the backpack and a carry-on for all of my clothes on different travel shoots and keep the kit very minimal. If everything can fit in this backpack, that's pretty ideal. Sometimes I do need to bring a Pelican case or two, but for the most part, this backpack does pretty much everything that I need. I'm not the biggest fan of Peak Design's other backpacks, to be honest. Their camera bags, especially, I don't love like that side kind of loading compartment. I love that this bag loads from the back, which I think is much A, safer, and B, just a better way to actually get camera gear and keep it protected and safe. I don't mind taking the bag off at all and setting it on the ground and opening it up from the back. You can actually open this bag from the side as well, but I rarely ever do that. I find that actually setting the camera bag down, unzipping it, and actually reaching for my camera gear through the back of the bag works best for me. This travel pack is truly one of the best backpacks I've ever had, and I really haven't switched or tried any other ones out there, so obviously there's a lot of options, but I've been very happy with this backpack and what it provides for me. So obviously inside of the bag we have a variety of different cameras that I wanted to talk about today. The first one being the Fuji X-H2S, which is my most recent pickup. So I've been wanting a dedicated video camera again for quite some time, and I've heard great things about the Fuji X-H2S, and I took a little while to actually pull the trigger on one. The main reason that I wanted a Fuji camera, and specifically the X-H2S, is I wanted my footage to look very similar to my photos. That way I can grade the footage. It all looks pretty similar, and you know, the colors actually work really well together when I make a video about shooting photography here on the channel. The camera itself is amazing. Coming from using the GFX and the X-T5, the X-H2S feels right at home for me, and it's very easy to pick through all the menus, shoot exactly what I need to in terms of video, and the footage looks incredible. The ability to shoot open gate is really great as well. Native 3x2 is something that not a lot of cameras can shoot. I find it really helpful, especially when you're cropping or if you just want to actually keep that native 3x2 aspect ratio. It looks really nice. And I love making short films with this camera. I love that I can keep this camera really simple with just an ND filter and a microphone, but if I want to rig it out in any sort of way, there's a lot of different options for that, including a battery grip and also an XLR mount on top of the hot shoe. both of which I'm considering getting for the next few trips that I'm going on. Now, I've only had this XH2S for just about 2 months now, but I can honestly say it's produced some of my favorite footage I've seen, and I really like how it complements all my other cameras. The ability to swap lenses with my X-T5 because they use the same mount makes it really nice and simple. If I want to throw on, say, a fixed lens on the XH2S and just walk around and shoot much more candidly, I can do that. I can also shoot on the 18-55 2.8, which is what I have on it currently, for a more kind of robust zoom lens approach, both of which work great, and I'm very happy with this camera so far. Now, keeping on the XF mount system, I do have the X-T5 obviously in my camera bag as well. I've had this camera now for just about a year, and it has been a great addition to my camera bag. I've made multiple videos on this camera if you guys want to go check any of those out on the channel, but the X-T5 has been really great for me. I was looking for kind of that hybrid between a smaller point-and-shoot camera, but not too big to where the point where it's cumbersome to bring around. I find the X-T5 to be the perfect size for me. I do love the Fuji X100 Mark VI and all those other smaller point-and-shoot cameras, but I find that the X-T5 to me kind of bridges that gap perfectly between being able to switch out lenses. I can throw a pancake lens on this camera if I want to and keep it nice and small and compact. But this camera also works great as a B cam for photography projects. I'll throw on the 18-55 pretty regularly on this camera and bring it alongside my GFX 100S just to get some supplemental shots, or even sometimes I'm using it as my main camera. The 40 megapixel sensor really shines through, and I find that the files look gorgeous. I oftentimes prefer bringing this around over my GFX just because of how small it is. The GFX is definitely my main workhorse camera for work, but I find the X-T5 to be just great for all things that I need it for. On top of the X-T5, I usually have a Fuji EFX20 flash. I love this guy. It's a really cool old Fuji Japanese flash that I bought off eBay. They're pretty expensive, but if you can find one for a reasonable price, I would definitely recommend picking one of those up. They're really fun to use, and I treat this more as like a point and shoot when I go out at night, or I'm shooting a party, or just any sort of nighttime photography. The flash works really great with the X-T5. Something really underrated as well, as I mentioned, is the X-T5 and the XH2S are both XF mount, so I can swap lenses really easily between those two. When I buy a new lens for one, it's a lens for both of them. And they also both carry the same battery that the GFX 100S does. So all three of them have the same Fuji battery that's charged and easy to swap in and out between the three cameras. I just bought like 9 different batteries, so I have a bunch of them now. And I have 2 different dual chargers that I charge all the batteries at once, so I can charge 4 batteries at a time and just be ready to go. Each camera has more than enough power for the day, which is great. Now, as mentioned, the final workhorse camera of the bunch is the Fuji GFX 100S. This obviously has been my go-to for quite some time now, several years at that. And I can't say enough good things about this camera. It truly is probably my favorite camera I've ever used in terms of image quality and color and just usability. I find that I'm able to take some really amazing photos with this camera, and I love how they look. I love that beautiful medium format sensor. The depth that you can get is pretty incredible. And obviously 102 megapixels is pretty nice as well. I'm definitely looking at picking up the GFX 100 Mark II here pretty soon. I haven't pulled the trigger just yet, but I am planning on doing that sometime this summer. So that's going to be added to the kit here pretty soon. I'll probably swap that out for the 100S just because there's a lot more features that I've been looking for with the 100 Mark II. But honestly, the GFX 100S has been an amazing camera for me. I'm mainly looking at that 100 Mark II for its performance, the ability to shoot without a buffer or a much larger buffer than the 100S had. The ability to have a battery grip on there is great as well, especially when I'm shooting for work. Having 2 batteries in there is really nice. In terms of lenses for the GFX, my favorite by far is the 32-64 f4, roughly a 2.8 if you equate it to full frame. This lens has been my workhorse pretty much since I bought the camera. I've had different versions of it over the years, and I love this lens. It's roughly a 25 to 50 mil equivalent, which I find to be great for most things. I've been messing around a lot with the 120 mil macro as well. This is an f4 lens, and I've had a lot of fun shooting with this lens pretty recently. Definitely think about adding it to the kit, as well as the 55 millimeter 1.7, also an amazing lens. Between these 3 lenses though, I don't really need anything else. I don't love having multiple lenses to choose from. I feel like it kind of just dilutes my creativity. I think you can get a lot done with just one lens with this camera, which is great. Another recent fun pickup is the DJI Osmo Pocket 3. Now, I haven't yet filmed a video with this. I'm actually going to be planning on heading out later this week and shooting something with it. But I bought this camera mainly for kind of behind the scenes. I feel like this is a great behind the scenes camera with the 1-inch sensor. It looks beautiful. You can shoot and log. I find it to be very small and compact. It's just amazing how little these cameras are now and the image quality they produce. I originally had a GoPro, but I didn't love the actual quality of the GoPro personally over the Osmo. I think the Osmo Pocket 3 nails that kind of form factor, how small it is, but also giving you a really beautiful image. I also got the lav mic that comes with it and the wide angle lens. Really excited to mess around with this and be able to bring you guys along when I don't want to bring, the massive XH2S with me. I can bring along the Pocket and be able to film and talk and kind of keep you guys up to speed on whatever I'm shooting. There's definitely a few lenses I want to pick up as well for the XF mount system. So for the XH2S and also the XT5. I've been looking at the 50 to 140mm f2.8 as a zoom lens option. I want to be able to shoot telephoto video with the XH2S. I think that seems like a great lens for that. And also on the photography side, having both the 18 to 55 and also the 50 to 140. I'm pretty covered. Everything from wide angle stuff to really tight telephoto. Those two lenses would be great. I definitely want to add a few prime lenses to the kit as well. I think the XF mount system is really exciting with how many different lenses there are out there. There's a ton of different options. So if you guys have any recommendations for lenses that you love, I would love to hear those. On the film photography side of things, I still have my two main cameras, the Contax T3 and the Mamiya 7 II. I don't shoot on these cameras as much as I used to. As you guys know, I went through a phase where I was shooting so much film. I have so many binders behind me with different negatives from different trips and projects. And I'll always love the whole process of shooting film photography, especially medium format. The Mamiya 7 II is really hard to beat in terms of the scans you're able to get from the beautiful 6x7 negative. I definitely want to start shooting film again here pretty soon, but I've taken a considerable break, almost 2 years from shooting it, and I feel like my digital photography and film photography look pretty similar now, which was the goal. I didn't want to have to necessarily rely on a film scan to get the colors I wanted. I wanted to be able to really dive into Lightroom and pick the different colors that I want and actually make the files look like film, which I feel like I've gotten pretty close. So that's exciting. But film photography will always be special to me, and I'll never get rid of those cameras. I just don't bring them along as much as I used to, but I'm looking to obviously make some more videos with those guys here at some point. Moving on to the actual tech and the equipment that I have in my camera bag. So I'll typically bring the Peak Design tech pouch with me on pretty much every single shoot, job, travel, whatever it is. I find it the best way to just organize all of my tech equipment and keep everything nice and clean. Inside of this pouch, you'll find various chargers, cables, different card readers. I find that organizing all of this inside of the actual bag really helps. I also have this 100-watt USB-C charger that's able to charge my MacBook, my camera batteries, and also my phone and AirPods all at the same time. I find that just bringing this instead of having to bring multiple different USB-C chargers is really helpful. It's made by a company called Ugreen, and I love this thing. I also do bring along these pro-grade card readers. I find the built-in card reader on the MacBooks to be too slow, so I'm always bringing those. If I'm dumping multiple cards, it's nice to have two different slots on these card readers. These pro-grade ones I've been using for years, and they work perfectly. Also inside the tech pouch, you'll find a small collection of SSDs. I love using Samsung and SanDisk SSDs specifically. I use the 4TB Samsung T7 and the 2TB SanDisk Extremes. Both of these work great, and I always bring a backup just so I can copy to two different SSDs when I'm out in the field. Especially when I'm on the job, I try to live by the saying that 2 is 1 and 1 is none, so I always have at least 2 or 3 backups of all of my stuff when I'm shooting and it's for a client. I usually bring a big power bank as well when I travel. I love this one from Anker. It's able to charge not only my MacBook, but also my camera batteries and my iPhone, and still have some juice left over. It's a very powerful battery, and it can charge up to 140 watts. I find this to be more than enough for everything that I need. If I'm just charging my phone, I could last easily a week with just this guy. So I try to bring it along as much as I can, and it also quick charges, so I can plug it into the wall for a half an hour, and I've got a bunch of juice to be able to bring around with me. Something else that I think that's pretty underrated is to bring kind of a smaller bag in your camera backpack, especially when you're traveling. I love the small sling bag from Bellroy. I find it to be just enough space to fit my XT5, my keys, my wallet, maybe a set of AirPods, something like that, and also my phone. The last thing you want to do is get to a new city especially, and you have to bring your entire camera bag with you everywhere that you go. I love being able to downsize and just bring something small and nimble to walk around a city. Obviously, if I'm on a shoot or if I am, out in nature or if I'm working out of a car, the backpack works great. But I find that especially if I'm traveling to a city, the ability to use some sort of smaller sling bag and keep it on you at all times is really helpful. When it comes to the computer, I'm still using the M1 Max MacBook Pro 14-inch. Fully maxed out. I love this computer. I've had absolutely no problems, everything from editing GFX files to working with 6.2K footage in Final Cut. This computer can really handle it all. I really do love the 14-inch design as well. I love how small it is and being able to throw it in my camera backpack. It makes it nice and easy to carry around. So as I mentioned, this is just kind of one of my camera bag variations. There's obviously a lot of different ones, especially when I'm going out to work. I typically will probably configure this camera bag differently and throw it in a Pelican case. I want to do a video on that as well and maybe bring you guys even along on the shoot. So stay tuned for that. I'm hoping that's able to happen here in the next few months. But I got a lot of fun summer travels coming up. And I want to do another breakdown of all the equipment I'm going to be bringing to Iceland in August. I got invited out on a really exciting trip, and there's going to be a lot of fun equipment that I'm going to be able to hopefully share with you guys on that journey. With all that being said, if you guys have any questions, feel free to leave those down below. I know it's a lot of equipment, but I'm going to try to link as much as I can down in the description. If you have any questions regarding anything that I mentioned, I'll be sure to get back to you. Thanks so much, as always, for watching. And before this video wraps up, I did want to take a moment to thank today's sponsor, which is Squarespace, for sponsoring today's episode. Now, as you guys know by now, Squarespace is a longtime supporter of this YouTube channel, and I can't thank them enough for their continued support. When it comes to building a website, they're just the easiest way to get things done. I myself don't know how to code or do any sort of that back-end stuff with a website, and using a service like Squarespace really helps being able to lay your website out how you want, create gallery pages, sell e-commerce products, just design the website the way that you want it to look. Squarespace has amazing customer service support for any questions that you might have, and the ability to build a website that looks professional and clean in a very short amount of time is really hard to beat for a creative like myself. As a photographer, I love using their different design and layout choices to organize my website into different project folders and bins, and I highly recommend you guys go check them out. If you want to check out Squarespace for yourself, there'll be a link down in the description to receive 10% off your first website or domain purchase. Thank you so much to Squarespace for sponsoring this video, and we'll see you guys in the next one.